We need to make sure that the programs we invest in the Farm Bill are doing what they're supposed to do, providing that safety net, also encouraging the next generation of farmers to stay in the business. If someone at the VA, a counselor or whatever, believes that that veteran is a danger to themselves or others, then they can do a reporting, and then the reporting must go to a judge or magistrate who would then rule on whether or not they were a danger to themselves, and that would be the only way they could lose it. This has been going on for over 30 years. All of the things that were mentioned during his campaign come to light. Downsizing government, making government more efficient, saving the American tax dollars. And why is that? Because we can't continue to go into debt and hand that off to our children and rich. That's probably one of the most important.
Joining me now is someone who has been a tireless advocate for our veterans, a defender of constitutional rights, and a leading voice for Southern Illinois. Congressman Mike Bost serves as chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee and sits on the Transportation Infrastructure and Agriculture Committees, all critical roles as we move into a pivotal year under the new Trump administration. Congressman, thank you so much for being with me here today. It's such an honor to have you.
I really appreciate being on with you.
Sir, AMAC Action, the advocacy arm of AMAC, proudly supports the Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act. Can you walk us through what this bill accomplishes and why it's so critical for protecting our veterans?
Yeah. So what it does is it makes permanent something we were able to put. Unfortunately, we had to use the budget last time to get this stopped. But for over the last 37, ever since the Brady bill passed, now that was a long time ago, but what happens is, and this was an interpretation that was given to the VA attorneys back years ago, that if a veteran goes to the VA and during that time that they are at the VA receiving care, all of a sudden they have to have a fiduciary to handle their finances, then automatically, according to the way the VA has been reading this law, is they have to be turned into the NICS list, which then they will lose their Second Amendment right without due process. Anyone who is not a veteran, they would, if somebody felt that they were a danger to themselves or someone else, then someone would have to file and report, and then that would have to go to a judge. That judge would have to bring them in to make a decision with due process if they were truly a danger to themselves or others. Now, the problem with that is that we have a tremendous amount of veterans around this nation that choose not to go and seek help from the VA for the fear that they would have this happen to them and they wouldn't be able to go, one, to protect their family, two, would lose their Second Amendment rights, or not be able to hunt with their children and grandchildren. So it was a problem, I believe, that was keeping veterans from going to the VA. I have been working on this for quite some time, but now as chairman, we were able to move forward and actually get it in the budget process where basically no money could be transferred from the VA to the NICS department. So we stopped it that way, but that's not permanent. What we need to do is pass this law, which makes it permanent. And what it does is it just simply states exactly what it is that I just explained to your listeners right here. And that is, if you receive a fiduciary, it does not automatically take your Second Amendment rights away or turn you into the next list. What it does is it says that if someone at the VA, a counselor or whatever, believes that that veteran is a danger to themselves or others, then they can do a reporting, and then the reporting must go to a judge or magistrate who would then rule on whether or not they were a danger to themselves, and that would be the only way they could lose it. This has been going on for over 30 years.
It's insane. I bet there are so many Americans who were not aware of it and who have found themselves, left without their Second Amendment right, being essentially stripped from them. This is such important work that you're doing, and as strong supporters of our Second Amendment, we here at AMAC, we applaud those efforts, and we thank you for fighting on that front. Now, veterans in rural areas like southern Illinois, they often face delays in accessing care. What concrete steps are you taking in 2025 to help leverage DOJ's influence to
Right.
streamline the VA operations, just to make sure that we have timely services, especially under, the new Trump administration, who's saying we've got to cut this waste, fraud, and abuse, but we
Right.
certainly don't want that to hurt the people who need it and really very much so deserve it, as they've defended our own rights, protecting
That
us.
is correct. And what we are doing is, first off, if you know the new secretary, Doug Collins, and I served together here in Congress. And Doug now, as the secretary, he's a very close friend. And we both have the same statement that we have made from our positions. And that is that the VA was not created for the bureaucracy, it was created for the veteran. And though we have grown the VA over the last 10 years, as far as staffing and also budget, we are not seeing better results as far as services and the speed at which services are provided. Remember, the VA is the second largest bureaucracy in the world. The second largest bureaucracy in the world. So early on, the secretary came in, made a decision to take all the ones that are still on probationary period and let them go, okay, because he could legally do that. Well, when he did that, it was about 2,000 people. Then we found out we don't want to lose nurses. We don't want to lose docs and everything. So a bunch of them got put back. And therefore, it was about 500. And so then the people were screaming, veteran services are going to fail. Veteran services are going to fail. This is important for your listeners to know. I just said they'd lost 500. The total employees for the VA system is 477,000.
Wow.
You will lose 500 people just in turnover in our VA. We do need to reduce that bureaucracy level. And we need to make sure that the laws that have been passed that try to make it better for the veterans are being implemented. The secretary earlier this week, sat down with I and our Republican members of the committee to lay out his move forward on how it is we're going to make it trimmer and more focused on the veteran. He not only did that with us, he then brought in the veteran service organizations, the American Legion, the VFW, the big veteran service organizations, brought them in for a breakfast earlier this week and explained to them the same thing so that they can go out and tell their members, you're not going to lose your services. We want to make your services better. And we want to do it by spending your tax dollars wisely. Because you know what? Veterans are taxpayers too.
They sure are. And it's such a common sense approach. And, anyone who isn't for that, I mean, it's just, it's smart. It's making U.S. taxpayer dollars go to work where they should be going to work. And, we just applaud the work that you're doing again, especially for our veterans. You've got great focus also on rural communities. What specific inefficiencies do you see in federal agricultural programs?
Well,
Are any ripe for reform?
Right now, where we're at, we're trying to get the Farm Bill passed. Unfortunately, the Farm Bill, we have to pass it every 5 years. We're 2 years over on the time we were supposed to pass it because of arguments. Now, what you need to understand is that the Farm Bill, and so many people don't realize this, only about 16% of the Farm Bill deals with agriculture. The rest deals with the SNAP program, the food nutrition program. That was how it was created in its original way. But what we have to make sure of is that the services that are in the Farm Bill side, that 16%, that are vitally important are what's known as a safety net. That is crop insurance. And right now our farmers are hurting very, very badly in this United States. Well, our row crops. Understand the diversity of our agriculture around this nation. I come from an area that is one of the most diverse districts because we have row crops, corn, soybean, and we do a thing called double cropping because we're in this patch through the middle of the United States that you can actually grow winter wheat and then all of a sudden go to your other crop, whether it's corn, soybeans, or sorghum. But then when you get down to my home, which is Murfreesboro, Illinois, and south, it turns into peach trees, apple trees, grapevines, a lot of vineyards there. And then over on the river is rice, and some especially non-gluten rice that is grown in our area. And just recently we went to cotton. So it's a very diverse agricultural area. That being said, we need to make sure that the programs we invest in the Farm Bill are doing what they're supposed to do, providing that safety net, also encouraging the next generation of farmers to stay in the business, where you have a tremendous amount of our farmers that either because of the sheer pressure all the time, you're gambling every year. I mean, what's the weather going to do? Is it going to be too hot? Is it going to be too wet? What's the prices doing? We've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure our new farmers are encouraged to stay in the business.
Oh, that's terrific. Really good. Thank you so much for that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, if we could, transportation, federal transportation, because you've been pushing for efficiency through DOGE. So do you see redundancies or outdated policies in federal transportation programs that
Right.
you think could be cut to
Yeah.
improve the infrastructure delivery?
It's not so much cut on the transportation, but make sure that the money is being spent to where it's supposed to be spent. Let me give you an example. When we passed during the Biden administration, they pushed forward with the infrastructure bill. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think infrastructure is, and your listeners can see if they agree. Roads, bridges, in seaports, inland ports, airports, rail, water and sewer lines, communication lines. That's infrastructure. It is not the federal government's job to put charging stations for cars that aren't enough of them to have to use them yet. And of that bill, more than half went to those type of ideas. I would like to take that money, shift it away from those ideas. And here let me explain why. In the entrepreneurship of our forefathers, when the internal combustion engine came out, the federal government didn't need to give you money to build gas stations. The free market did. And the free market was encouraged. And if you would have noticed that with some electric cars, they were starting to build out before we put all this money on infrastructure for doing that. And how do we know that? Well, if you notice, many of their truck stops and many of the gas stations started putting in charging stations. Many of the hotels along the interstates started putting in charging stations, not with federal dollars, but with their own dollars, making the investment so they drew the customer to them. That is not where we don't need to discourage them from doing that by all of a sudden saying, oh, we're going to create all these charging stations. Let the free market do it. Get out of that business and know what our job is. Our job is, according to the Constitution, is deal with interstate commerce. Interstate commerce is driving up and down the roads, making sure those roads are free, ready to run, rail that can transport, also shipping, both in the U.S. and also away from the U.S. and back to the U.S. again. All of these things are things we should wisely invest in, not all of these things that are now for a better term, woke, and go ahead and actually do what our forefathers have done all along and make the investment in true infrastructure.
Yeah, so many AMAC members felt that the left really stole their hard taxpayer dollar to go towards their Green New Deal, something that the American people didn't really want. They didn't see the benefits. I mean, the people that they were trying to force these electric vehicles on, for example, were many people who couldn't afford to give up the car that they had and go buy an electric car. And so to what end? And this is why it's so important, again, that people have that transparency. And we appreciate you bringing that to light, sir. Before we wrap up, I have a final question. We see how President Trump has laid out an aggressive first 100-day agenda. What are you personally most excited to help advance legislatively? And what do you believe will have maybe the most immediate impact on your own constituents in Illinois' 12th district?
Well, my constituents were very, very clear, I think, when they made their votes this time. And it was securing the border, and it was removing those who are here illegally. I think he's moving forward with that. We've got to try to back him up with as much legislation. Now, legislation is going to still be difficult because of that cloture rule in the Senate, where it takes 60 votes to pass something before it takes just 50 votes. I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but that is their rule over there. So I think you will see all of the things that were mentioned during his campaign come to light. Downsizing government, making government more efficient, saving the American tax dollars. And why is that? Because we can't continue to go into debt and hand that off to our children and grandchildren. That's probably one of the most important things.
Amen. Those are all things so important to AMAC's over 2 million members, sir. We really appreciate you being with us, Congressman Mike Bost. We
Thank
just
you
so
for having me on.
appreciate everything you're doing to advocate for Southern Illinois farmers, and you're a champion, for smarter infrastructure. So we thank you for fighting for our veterans, cutting government waste with DOGE. You are really bringing real-world solutions to Washington, and we're thrilled to have you here. Hope to have you back with me again soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
God bless you. And to all of you wonderful AMAC members listening, don't forget to subscribe, share, and catch up. Tell people all about us, because we're unpacking the issues that really shape our heartland and beyond. Until then, I'm Rebecca Weber. God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.